Thanks everybody for tuning in again. We are doing part 2 with Vonn Sumner, amazing artist. He won't like that word, but I think he's amazing. We have a lot to talk about. We could keep talking forever. We were talking during the break about teaching, since we're both teachers. And you've been teaching, how long have you been actually teaching at Fullerton College?
Oh, I've been teaching there
For a while, right?
only I guess 5 or 6 years.
Oh, okay. And you taught a lot, and what about before?
And there's been an online year in there, so
Yeah.
I've taught about 15 years total. Less than 20 anyway.
Right.
But a lot.
That's a lot.
And yeah, I
Well, I mean, I'm interested to hear your experience. Vonn did his MFA at Davis or undergraduate?
Both.
You did, okay. So, I wanted to go to Davis. I didn't get in.
Huh.
And I think you were 10 years later than me, maybe. I was there 88 to 90. And then you were there.
I started there in the fall of 94.
Right, okay. Not that much later, but.
18-year-old freshman.
I mean, they had an extraordinary art department, right? Wayne Chibo, and Robert Arneson. Was he still there, Arneson? Or had he passed away? I can't remember when he was pretty old, I think.
He had just either retired or died.
Yeah, okay.
He was my dad's high school ceramics teacher.
No way.
My dad still calls him Mr. Arneson. Because that's his high school
Oh, wow.
ceramics teacher.
That would be a cool ceramics. Wow.
He said they would, that was the guy that my dad stayed in after school with and threw clay at the ceiling.
Right.
And waited to see how long it would take to fall.
He'd be
they
the guy.
probably smoked a joint together.
I'm sure they did, man. The thing I remember about Robert Arneson is that I went to a small private school called Drake University in Des Moines, Iowa, which is a decent school actually, but pretty conservative. Robert Arneson had a huge retrospective at the Des Moines Art Center, which is actually quite a good small museum.
I bet.
And we went to I remember Roommate and I went to the opening. There was Robert Arneson just wasted. He's like the red-nosed drunk.
Sure.
I mean, and my teachers hated his work so much that it really made me take notice about why they would feel so strongly about it.
That's pretty great.
And I was only, 20 at the time. Yeah, and so anyway...
That's pretty great.
It is great. So
what year was that?
That was 1983. That was 1983 in the winter. I remember
they hated his work?
They hated his work. My roommate, we were getting drunk in the painting studios before we went to the opening, and he hit his head on this thing of concrete, had to get stitches. I remember he was on pain meds and vodka. And we were just wasted at the opening, and we were feeling really guilty until we saw Robert Arneson. It made us look like teetotalers, man. That dude was just lit. Anyway, yeah, they hated his work. They thought it was grotesque and unseemly. I don't know the words they used. Unclassical and profane in a way that was vulgar. And I was just like, wow, these guys really don't like this. And I mean, my teacher made a point of talking about it the next week. Because we were like, that was a cool show, we were like, it was really interesting, and he kind of wanted to cut us off at the pass.
That's pretty great.
Yeah.
That makes me love him even more.
Well, so the fact that you studied with him, it's real life, man. So I'm curious, I'm sure that your experience as an undergrad and grad student was so different than mine. I'm interested to hear a little bit. I know I want to talk about teaching, but I think your experience as a student probably informed your teaching to some degree. Would that be accurate?
To say the least.
To say the least. So I'm curious if you have any thoughts about that.
The reason I take teaching so seriously and care about it so much is directly because of the teachers I had at Davis.
Yeah.
And because, I'll start at the start.
Yeah. Yeah, we have plenty of time.
I grew up in Palo Alto.
Okay.
Which is where Stanford University is.
Right.
And it was just in the water that education was important.
Okay.
And honestly then, because it was while Steve Jobs and those guys were doing Apple.
Right.
But it was really before, I grew up there before the tech stuff.
Yeah.
like those were nerds in garages, you know.
Right.
And Hewlett Packard was a little place up on the, you know.
Yeah.
And it was kind of a niche market. Like Apple Computer was a niche thing.
Yeah. I remember those days.
So anyway, I grew up in that Palo Alto.
It's a different place now.
And so in that way, education was kind of the thing, at least as far as I was aware.
Yeah.
I had friends whose parents were Stanford professors.
Yeah.
And I really valued that just inherently. I didn't even question it. It was just like, oh yeah, education.
Yeah.
That's really important.
Yeah.
And I had great, incredible public schools that I went to.
That's
and
nice.
people that took it really seriously too.
Yeah.
And I think it was kind of a sweet spot in public education too, because it was like post, 60s and 70s. People had been, I remember my kindergarten teacher was a Vietnam anti-war protest hippie. Long hair, would play, protest songs from history on his acoustic guitar at lunch for us.
Wow. Can't imagine that now.
Everything from like anti-war Vietnam things. He's just sitting there, Bill Thompson, sitting there with jeans and a t-shirt, long hair, playing his acoustic guitar.
Amazing.
Literally.
Yeah,
right?
literally.
And this is my kindergarten teacher.
I
don't know anything different. And then he's singing slave songs. He's talking about, he's talking about overseers and the man. This is being put into me as a kid.
That's amazing. Yeah, it's not my experience in Iowa, that's for sure.
So, anyway, blah, blah, blah. There was a bunch of artistic people in my family.
Right.
They were kind of all talented. My dad's one of 5 boys. And they were all more talented than each other. They're really good.
Yeah.
So I was just sort of around it. My dad was a picture framer.
Right. Okay.
So there was art coming through the shop.
Yeah.
And I knew I wanted to be an artist from the time I was 10, 11.
We have a similarity there.
I was like, that's what I want to be.
Yeah.
Right? And there were things like that.
Yeah.
So at some point, I fell in love with Wayne Thiebaud's paintings.
Yeah.
And I must have been maybe middle school.
Mm-hmm.
So through high school, I had like a poster of one of his cityscapes on my wall.
Yeah.
In my room. I had my basketball heroes, and then I had the Thiebaud poster.
That's right.
So then it comes time to go to college. Like, we're applying to college.
Yeah.
And Palo Alto was very competitive.
Yeah.
And very privileged. I wasn't rich at all, but I grew up around a lot of wealth and a lot of privilege and a lot of people.
You were not uncomfortable around it, necessarily.
And so, I felt like a weirdo for wanting to be A, an artist.
Really?
And B, find my own path somehow. Not go... I mean, honestly, I can count almost 10 people from my friends.
Yeah, just your friends.
From my class that went across the street to Stanford University.
Sure.
It's
a local school. Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
So, to me, it felt rebellious.
Right.
To be like, I want to go to UC.
That's hilarious. Yeah.
And I know, so I'm just telling you, that's the context I was coming from.
Yeah, it makes sense.
So when I was applying to college, I didn't know what to do, honestly. I really just thought, I know what I don't want to do.
Right.
I don't want to do what my friends are doing. Not that they're doing what they need to do, and they're amazing.
Yeah.
But, I knew that it wasn't for me.
Right.
So I'm just looking through art schools, but I'm like, like I said, education, I just valued that. I want a real full education. I want a good library.
Yeah.
I don't know. So I'm looking through schools, and then I learn, it lists the faculty.
Yeah.
It lists who's teaching there,
You
right?
can look it up, yeah.
So then that became my way of looking for, where am I going to go to school? I see Wayne Thiebaud's name listed at the top of the UC Davis art faculty, and I couldn't believe it. I was like,
what?
Number one, he's teaching?
Yeah, right. You're like, what?
And he's still teaching? Like, that guy doesn't need to teach, right?
Right, no.
So, and also like, you know, when you're a teenager, someone in their 70s seems like they're almost dead. You know? I was like, he's still alive?
Yeah, right.
And he's teaching?
He's in our history books. What the hell?
Exactly.
Yeah, totally.
He was a legend in my brain, right?
Good. Well, not just in your brain.
So then, I literally went to UC Davis just because I saw his name on the list.
Yeah.
And I went and visited.
Yeah.
And I liked the feeling.
Sure.
I was like...
I've never been to campus, but I can imagine it's...
I just liked it. It was out of the way.
Yeah.
It was kind of chill. It was just a
But
college
UCs are
town,
nice,
cow
though.
town.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, no, it's great. It's great. It's a
Yeah.
great school. But I'm telling you, I didn't know anything about the history of the department at all.
Right.
It was just gut feeling.
Yeah,
It was just following an intuition. Like,
Yeah.
oh yeah, Wayne Thiebaud. Wow, to take a class from him would be amazing. That would be worth
That's
it.
all you need to know.
And then I get to UC Davis, and there's all these teachers, right?
Yeah.
And I sign up for my first drawing class, and it's this guy, Mike Henderson.
Mm-hmm.
And I've never heard of him. I don't know anything.
Yeah.
And I walk in, and he's this big, you know, just booming voice, black man from Missouri.
Uh-huh.
And he's just like a force of nature.
Yeah.
And he's amazing.
Yeah.
And that's my first drawing class.
Nice.
And he's just always, you know, teasing me and kidding me, right?
Right.
And one day I walk in with like headphones on and I'm listening to some music, and he said, "Oh, what are you listening to?" I said, "Oh, I'm listening to this old blues musician, Jimmy Reed." And he goes, "No kidding. I played with Jimmy Reed." He goes,
What the fuck?
"I was in his band the night that he died."
What? Jesus.
We were setting up.
What the?
And we said, "Where's Jimmy? He's not here yet." And then his wife called and said, "Oh, he died."
You can't beat that, man.
So things like that
Oh
started
my
happening
God.
at Davis, where it was just like, well, this is where I meant to be. I mean,
yeah, you were.
how is that happening? You know, and then, so I loved
Yeah.
my teachers. Mike was the first one that I really got to know.
Yeah.
Okay, and then so Wayne was teaching upper division classes.
Yeah.
And so as a freshman, I'm not allowed to take his class.
Right.
So I just went, I was looking at like, what's the schedule?
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, can I enroll in this class? The art office says, no, you're a freshman. You can't, that's for juniors. You have to be upper division. I was like, okay.
You go in circumvent the system.
Yes.
Hell, you guys.
No. So then I just find what's the classroom, what's the time,
Just
and
go.
I walk in the back door and I sit down. And it's Art 148. It's called Theory and Criticism.
Wow.
And I sit in the back, I've got my notebook, and I'm like, I don't know what to expect.
Yeah.
I literally have never...
You're like 18.
And there's no internet, like there's the internet, but there's not like, I don't know what he looks like. I don't know anything.
No. Yeah.
And then exactly when the class time is supposed to start,
Yep.
he walks in a suit and bow tie
Really?
with a stack of books, closes the door, locks the door, goes to the podium. Good morning. And I'm just like,
Yo.
I'm home.
Yeah, man.
This is it.
Yeah, this is it.
It was amazing.
That's amazing.
And it was like I had no idea that he was going to be such a great teacher.
Right.
I just thought I love his paintings.
Well, you got lucky in that one, man.
But then he starts putting slides up on the screen and talking, and it's just I don't know. I'm currently trying to write about it because it's like
Yeah.
I have to somehow put it into words what he did as a teacher that I think was so special.
Can you? I mean, obviously, it could be a whole book, clearly. But do you have a sense of what made him a great teacher, or I think maybe it's not one quality, but can you single out one of the things you think is?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's really simple, actually, and I just have to think of the right word.
It's okay, man. You got plenty of time.
It's like open-mindedness.
Right. Wow. Yeah, it's in short supply sometimes in the old academia
or maybe eclectic.
Or both, maybe.
Catholic in the old sense of the word.
It's small c.
Not religion, but meaning everything.
Everything, yeah. That's somebody who has confidence in their own vision can be generous enough to do that, I think, as part of it. I don't know if that's true with him, but I would guess from what you're saying.
I think that he had real, genuine humility, actually.
Yeah.
I mean, everybody's got an ego.
All right.
And everybody's, whatever, has their thing. But I think he was genuinely humble enough to know that his job was not to tell us what was right or wrong.
Yeah.
But to teach us how to see and how to think and it's almost like he was up there every day being like, look how big the world is.
Right.
Look how much there is to know.
Yeah. That's great, man.
And everywhere you look, there's a whole world.
Yeah.
It was like he just took it really seriously. He was really taking it seriously. And to really take it seriously as a teacher is an amazing goal or
you seem like
standard.
You seem like you have that same quality. I would guess as a teacher you do that.
Well, I mean, I can only try to pass on what those people passed on. It's not.
Yeah,
but here's the thing, you were saying about, the thing that Guston said, he's quoting T.S. Eliot. Mm-hmm. As I've gone on and read more, I find these things like, oh, that's what Wayne said. Mm-hmm. Oh, that's what he's quoting.
Yeah.
And
that's cool.
And every time I would ask Wayne, like, oh, where'd you get this, where'd this idea come from? It's always like, oh, yeah, somebody, somewhere. So, what I think a really great teacher, I think what made him a great teacher was, it wasn't about him.
Right.
He was he gives you a subject.
Yeah.
Here's painting.
Yeah.
And through the study of painting, you can study everything.
Right. That's
whole world.
Yeah, that's right.
And if you do that, what you get is a self.
Yeah.
And it's not automatic.
No, it's not.
It has to be earned.
Yeah.
It has to be built.
Yeah.
It has to be.
You have to slip. You have to go backwards.
Make mistakes. Yeah, all that stuff. So so something about open-mindedness and.
That's interesting.
He was always trying to look at things from every point of view.
That's so interesting because his paintings have such a specific point of view. Which,
totally.
Which is which to me is not a contradiction in any way, actually, because, I think, well, I can only speak for myself. For me, one of the great things about teaching is just to not have to think about myself.
Absolutely, exactly.
Do you think that's true for you?
Definitely.
Right? Okay.
No, I find it actually really rejuvenating.
It's the one thing that I did in my deep depression that I never, and I can't say I enjoyed it because I enjoyed nothing. That's the truth. I'm not looking for any pity.
Yeah.
But I really didn't feel well. But
that's depression.
That's right. That's hence the name. But actually, it's the only activity that I didn't quit.
Yeah.
No, I needed the money. there was practical reasons for that.
Sure.
But you know what? I could just as easily have just dumped everything.
Sure.
But for some reason, that was the one thing I didn't make work for 5 years, but I ironically, I don't want to talk about me, but it is interesting. The last 2 years of my depression, I didn't miss a single day of school. Now, I didn't even take the personal days. Because I was afraid if I stopped, I would never go back.
Totally.
But it's really funny to me now that I think about it.
I think you're right. It's about getting outside of yourself.
Yeah, and it's like other people's... You really want to help promote somebody's vision.
It's so rewarding when
really
it happens.
Is, man.
It's so rewarding.
And you can, and not egotistically, you can actually make a difference in somebody's life the way Wayne and Bill, who's your first teacher's name? Bill?
Mike Henderson.
Mike.
There's so many.
Well, right.
Dave Hollowell, Squeak Carnwell.
But it really... Oh, I know Squeak. I met Squeak one time.
She's great.
She's cool.
She's a great
I met her
teacher.
in Seattle. She used to show up in Seattle.
Yeah.
Okay, that's cool, man. I like her work.
She was a great teacher.
I believe you.
She was very inspiring.
Wow,
very
what an amazing
funny.
department.
Yeah.
Good Lord.
Cornelia Schultz.
So what about and you're still in touch with Wayne Thiebaud, right? You're...
Yep. He's
an old guy now.
He's been so important to me.
Yeah.
And we we definitely got closer over the years.
Yeah.
So that...
Does he give feedback on your current work ever?
Oh, yeah.
He does.
Oh, yeah.
That's interesting.
In fact...
What does he... Well, you don't have to tell me, but... Is he generally supportive? Does he make very specific comments about specific motifs, ideas, approaches? Or
everything.
Everything.
All of it.
Wow. It's like you still have a teacher.
Well, I mean... Definitely.
Yeah.
And the Crazy Cat thing is about him.
Really?
To me, personally.
How so?
Okay.
That's just interesting, man.
One of those days, it was that first semester that I was sitting in on his class against the rules.
Yeah. He didn't even know that you were sitting in? No. He doesn't give a shit anyway, I'm sure. Yeah.
It doesn't matter. He was there to teach whoever's showing up.
That's right. That's the way to do it.
And, as a teacher, you just want people who are curious.
That's right. For sure.
I'll take people who aren't enrolled but are curious.
I'll take them ahead of most people.
Over the people who are asleep.
Yeah.
And need that credit.
Yeah, exactly.
Anyway.
Yeah.
So, one of those days, I walk in, sit down, lights are off. It was the first slide on the thing, I remember it. He puts this image of a Crazy Cat comic up.
Really? That's so funny.
I mean, I had the thing that was amazing about that is, you're taking this class with this person who's lived a whole life, and an amazing life.
Yeah.
He knows most of 20th century art history firsthand. Those are his friends.
Totally, man. Yeah.
So he's telling all these stories and talking about all these things, and I'm 18 and I have relatively nothing.
Yeah. Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
So he's opening up whole worlds every class, you know?
Wow.
Here's Morandi, right?
Yeah.
Like, I've never heard of that.
Yeah.
I don't know anything about that.
Yeah.
So Crazy Cat one day. Here I want to start talking about, this old cartoonist. And he's telling about how...
That's George
Harriman.
Yeah.
And he said all these painters loved this cartoonist. I'm like, I'm intrigued. Because I was one of those kids. I grew up drawing.
Yeah, me too.
That was my first
Me too.
drawing was like...
Comic books.
Garfield the cat,
Yeah.
The first thing I remember was an X-Men cover.
I was into the Marvel ones, yeah.
I was constantly drawing Wolverine.
Of course, me too.
What's his face? Colossus was just a contour line exercise, right?
Exactly.
So I was a comic book kid.
Yeah.
But I didn't know the 1920s.
No. How would you know that? Yeah.
So he starts talking about this amazing comic book artist from the 20s and 30s who all these painters love. And he starts listing Picasso, Diebenkorn, Elmer Bischoff, de Kooning, these people that are, in the pantheon. And I'm thinking, well, if they love it, then I need to know about it.
Of course.
And then he's showing these drawings and they're like, wonderful.
Yeah, they're so good.
I check out this book from the library. They have one book.
Yeah.
The introduction is written by E.E. Cummings.
What?
Who at that stage was my favorite poet.
He's very accessible.
I was just getting into E.E. Cummings.
Yeah.
And I was in love with E.E. Cummings.
That's crazy, man.
So then there's the introduction by E.E. Cummings, and he writes poetically about Crazy Cat.
How amazing, man.
And I'm telling you, I was just a goner, right?
Yeah, of course.
I'm just obsessed. Yeah. And I was very homesick, so I was taking the train. I didn't have any money. I was taking the train from Davis down to the Bay Area almost every weekend that first year.
Sure. Yeah.
And all I was doing on that train was reading Crazy Cat and drawing from Crazy Cat.
Yeah.
And just so in love with it.
Wow. That's very interesting, man.
And I didn't know what to do with that, but I was just so into it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then, however many years later.
Yep.
20-some years later. I was doing those, some of the paintings in that show that you saw with dumpster fires and stuff.
Yeah.
And there's a little alley cat. And my buddy Randall Cabe says, we're talking on the phone one night, and I'm kind of finishing those paintings, and I'm like, I don't know. I don't know what to do next, I think I'm done with that.
Yep.
I was starting the next one, and it was just sort of like a street. It was like a sidewalk and a wall.
Yeah.
And I didn't really know what to like. Right?
Yeah.
And he goes, what if, this Randall said, what if that alley cat was Crazy Cat? Because he knows me.
Yeah, he knows you.
He knows Wayne.
Yep.
He studied with Wayne. He went to Davis
Right.
10 years before.
Yeah.
And he knows what that means to me.
Yeah.
And he's just like, do it, dude. Just put Crazy Cat in there. And I'm laughing, right? It's just like, well, that's stupid, but that's funny, you know?
Yeah.
So literally the next day, I did that to make Randall laugh.
Oh my God.
And then
Wow.
I sent it to him, you know? And it's kind of clumsy. Like, I don't really know what to do, but I liked it.
Yeah.
And then I thought, well, I could do better than that.
Mm-hmm.
So then the next day I painted another one.
Yeah.
And they were like one-day paintings, basically.
Yeah.
The next, I paint another one. And the second one's a little better.
Yep.
And more personal, like less sort of trying to make Randall laugh and more like, okay, just the next little step. What would I do with that? What would be interesting?
Right.
So I do those two, and a few of my painter friends are enthusiastic about them.
For real. Yeah.
I brought them, we did a little studio visit,
Yeah.
and we're showing each other our paintings, and
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't know, what about these? And they're like excited about them, and which is nice, and then I'm going like, the hell do you do with that?
Yeah, right. You were probably just like, I didn't expect.
What am I going to paint Crazy Cat now? Like, what do you even do with that? That's ridiculous. So,
but you're like, yeah.
I put it on the back burner, and then New Year's Eve that year, 2019, I'm almost done with it.
No. I'm just no, we're good.
I go up to the Bay Area for the holidays, right? And I always bug Wayne and be like, can I bring you some paintings and show them to you?
Yeah.
And he's the best. I mean, he's so, oh yeah, let's do it. So New Year's Eve, I'm in his studio. He's showing me what he's working on. We're sitting and talking.
Yeah.
I show him what I'm working on, which were those dumpster fire, trash fire kinds of things.
Yeah.
He's giving me these little critiques and pointers and things.
Yeah.
And then at the end, I'm like, okay, I have two more. Let me know what you think of these. Like, be kind. This is going to be goofy. So I put these two Crazy Cat paintings on the easel. And it's like all those years later, it's surprising how scary that can still feel.
Dude.
Because I respect his opinion much.
Of course.
And it's just like,
he
could
put the hammer down.
Oh yeah, he could cut my head off pretty easily.
Sure.
And he'll do it so understatedly.
Yeah, it's
gonna hurt even worse.
Nothing like getting stabbed by a nice guy.
And he says, so he's looking for a long time, and I'm just sort of sitting there,
Oh man.
like knots in my stomach.
Yeah.
Going like, I can't believe I'm still feeling this. You know?
Yeah.
I'm a grown man. And he goes, it's interesting, the idea of accessibility.
Oh.
And I'm going like, do you mean these are so obscure that no one would know what I'm talking about, so they wouldn't have access?
You took it as a negative, maybe.
Yeah. Automatically.
Yeah, of course.
How are you cutting me down?
Yeah.
And he just, the opposite.
Oh.
No, the opposite.
Okay.
And then I'm like,
oh God.
And then I'm like 10 feet tall. I'm like, oh? You mean, you think they're accessible in a good way? And then he goes, he quotes Goethe. He says,
Jesus.
You shouldn't pick up a pen without thinking about the millions.
Oh, I don't know that quote, but that's a good quote.
I'm probably misquoting.
No.
But basically,
yeah.
You shouldn't start to write until you're writing something that is worth sharing with everybody.
That's great.
Or at least potentially.
Yeah.
And it's very Wayne. I know that coming from him, he means that as a really nice compliment.
Yeah, yes.
Because he is the kind of artist who cares very much about...
It's not a warning. It's a kind of statement of purpose.
Yeah, he's a populist.
Yeah.
In the old sense of the word, not...
I understand. I totally get it.
That word's been ruined.
Yeah, but no, we can rehabilitate anything.
He's an old, Wayne would say he's an old communist.
Yeah. Or a real communist.
Yes. Right.
Yeah.
He's like Woody Guthrie.
Right.
He
Totally.
grows up in that era.
He's sincere.
He means
Yeah.
art should be at least accessible to the people who are willing to go meet it.
Gustin said the same thing in his own way in that film when he talked
Exactly.
about there's too much sympathy.
It's too much in speak.
Yeah, exactly.
If it's just artists talking to themselves,
Yeah.
then what the hell's it about, I've had friends, people go to art school and they come back and say, oh, I'm only painting for 100 people. And I'm like, okay. I mean, that's fine. If that's your position, that's fine.
Can you name them all?
Yeah.
You should.
Yeah, probably.
No, I'm kidding.
They want the right galleries, the right
I
curators,
know.
and it's just this insular
Right.
thing. To me, I don't find that fulfilling.
No, I agree 100%.
And I had this other professor friend at Stanford who died, and I remember getting on the plane after his funeral, and I was just heartbroken about him.
Yeah.
And for some reason, there was this very clear thought of like, I wish painting like meant something to the culture more.
That's an interesting thing
Again.
to think about. Right.
There was some feeling of need of like, I don't want to just be painting for 2 people.
No.
It would be...
But you're not.
It would be my goal to try... I don't know why this came out of that.
Yeah, no, I get it.
But it's like... It should be emotionally relevant to people's lives. I'm sure that writers think that. I'm sure that musicians think that. So it's just that.
Just that.
It's
yeah,
just wanting
sure.
that.
Makes sense.
So Wayne saying that was amazing feeling
Definitely,
of
man.
like, oh man, that's
Did he elaborate at all at the time or no?
Yeah, he said
Yeah.
he talked about the way that people, how it's funny, maybe oxymoronic. People can identify somehow or empathize with animated characters like that. He used much more sophisticated language. He's very smart.
Yeah, I'm sure.
But he said something about like this, like the stylized, more generalized figure becomes more accessible than the specific, literally that person figure, somehow. He said people are able to empathize with that instantly in a way that they don't necessarily...
I think it's the idea of I don't mean to jump in, but I mean, one thing I learned in therapy, being in a group therapy, is that displacement, you can empathize with the other better than you can sometimes the specific thing about you.
Yeah.
And it seems like that's what Art Spiegelman did in Mouse.
Exactly.
I mean, it's the same thing, kind of.
That's exactly right. Exactly.
Yeah.
And, and he was saying that at exactly the right time for me.
Yeah.
Because I had completely burnt myself out on the kinds of paintings I had been doing before that.
Yeah.
I had been doing a lot of self-portraits and things like that.
I love those pieces, too.
Well, thank you.
I mean, I think they're great, but I understand.
But I got to this point of just going
I can
like...
understand that.
I saw it from a different point of view.
Yeah.
I got outside of myself
Yeah.
at some show. And I thought, someone could walk into the show and just go like, well, this is a bunch of paintings of white guys.
That's true. I guess so, yeah.
And I was aware of that always, and
Yeah.
I was painting myself on purpose as a kind of found object.
Yeah,
like,
I understand.
Like, who do you paint? It's also politically loaded.
Yeah.
Identity.
Totally.
Cultural appropriation. Who do you have permission to paint?
Totally.
Gender.
I've been through this, man.
All of that, right?
All of it, man.
It's when we went to school.
Totally.
So if you're brought up in critical theory, you basically, it's like, well, you can't paint anyone. Right?
Exactly.
It's so problematic.
Totally.
So I used myself as a kind of neutral, like, well, I happen to be born into this body.
Yeah.
I can use this. I have permission to use this.
I give myself permission.
That's all. And then I saw it from outside and I thought, like, well, there's a whole bunch of people who are going to have instant lack of empathy for that. Because, like, So Wayne saying that was really interesting to me, and I took it seriously. And the fact that he was encouraging about those things.
Yeah.
He goes, these are like anything goes. He was saying things that were like hitting my buttons, like exactly.
Yeah, man.
Anything goes. Man, I'm ready for that.
There you are.
And he says, and they're kind of adventurous. There's something adventuresome here. And so all of those things get me on fire after that. I'm like,
yeah,
I don't know what to do, but if he's taking it seriously, then I have to try this.
Yeah.
So that's why I got into that in the first place. It comes from...
That's so great. I mean, I think that's sort of a great story on so many levels. Like on one hand, it's like the surprise. It's like the traditional. It's like the same thing you tell your students. Whatever you're afraid to do, do it.
Exactly.
And you're like, well, but man, when it comes down to it, we're all just like, I don't know if I can do that. But then you get a little kick somewhere from something or someone. And
I think that one thing I've learned is how much community matters.
Yeah.
Even if it's a small community.
But you have to give yourself a little credit, Vonn, because you did have the guts to show him. Because you didn't have to. You could have just withheld them and he would have known the difference.
Sure.
So you did put yourself out there. You did make it happen. You made the first move.
Sure.
But a lot of people wouldn't. I mean, there are people who wouldn't.
But it took permission from my painter friend and then Wayne.
Yeah.
To really be able to give myself permission.
But free will, man. Wayne could have showed you George Herman back in 1990, whenever you were there. No, he did, but you could have just not responded to.
No, of course. I'm not saying I did nothing. I'm just saying.
Yeah, I know.
I think people underestimate.
Oh yeah.
How much art making, even painting,
community. Oh, definitely.
Is cumulative.
Absolutely.
And that we help each other.
Oh yeah, man.
And that it's a kind of collaboration.
Absolutely. Well, that's what David Anton. Do you know David Anton?
That sounds familiar.
He's is he a poet? Is he a word performative artist? He taught at UCSD for years. Eleanor Anton's husband. You know Eleanor Anton, the artist?
No.
Okay. Well, anyway, he taught at UCSD, but he talked about, he's like, artists, everything an artist makes is like a hammer, like you would hope that if somebody needed it, you'd lend it to them, and then you can borrow theirs. And and he's sort of speaking against, owning things.
Absolutely, that's right. So, for me, painting Crazy Cat has been so fun because it doesn't feel like mine.
Right.
Because
I know.
Because it was like letting go of the hang-ups of making my paintings. I'm just making paintings.
Yeah. And it's like...
And I don't own it.
The Army of One model is like... it was never presented that way, but that's how I see it now. Art school of like... It's like you're John Keats. I love John Keats.
Absolutely.
I love those romantic poets who are like Baudelaire, against the world, blah, blah, blah. But let's face it, man, in the history of culture, the solo artist maybe started with Michelangelo or maybe a little before, but it's a teeny little fragment of a large history of more community-based art making, which Van Eyck had to make fucking signs. And go on diplomatic missions for... Holbein did...
Yeah. It's not either or. It's not either or. It's the individual author. Yeah, it's the individual author.
Yeah,
making the things.
Yeah, it is.
And that comes from a community and a collaboration. Of all of it.
My mom is a great pianist, but she also studied musicology, and she wrote her thesis on a really obscure Viennese composer who's not very good, but was like a contemporary of Mozart. But her whole thesis was based on the idea that you need all these people to pave the way for the great ones, to lay down the tracks and to like give them a road to walk on, and like the John the Baptist idea or whatever, which I think is really what you're saying. It's like it's nobody comes from outer space, man.
Yeah, and I think that that was part of what I was saying earlier, like with experience and time and everything, I've been able to accept that and really embrace that.
Yeah.
Rather than worrying about like, oh, well, is this really mine? Did I, it's like, no, fuck all that. I don't care.
Yeah.
What do I want to see?
Yeah.
And then I'll paint that.
Right.
And if there's never been me before,
Yeah.
then I'll paint it in a way that it hasn't been done before, and you don't have to worry about that. It kind of takes care of itself.
It totally does take care of itself.
You just paint how you paint, or you make your art, you play your instrument how you play your instrument.
Yeah.
And focus on what you're playing.
Exactly.
And, I don't know.
No, I 100% agree. I mean, and then the ironic thing is then you'll get people who are going to analyze every little move as if they do it, they'll be golden. I mean, that's how it works, man. That's this interesting thing about influence and teaching.
Let's get back to teaching.
Well, yeah,
I took us off track.
No, you did not. It's all part of it, man.
I think that to expand on what I was saying about Wayne, and not just him, a lot of those teachers at Davis were so good.
Yeah.
And it was a kind of anti-orthodoxy.
Right. Oh, that's a good way
to put more of a point on it.
Yeah.
The Davis ethos was stylistically promiscuous.
That's incredibly rare in departments, man.
Anything.
I think.
It was anything goes.
Yeah. But do it well.
But then a kind of formalism. Like whatever you want to do, great. But you better do it.
Yeah.
And then they were serious as a heart attack about how you did it.
That's so.
Know the form, know the history, know the references.
Yeah.
You better work harder than anyone's ever worked at it. All of that, right?
Yeah, that's important.
Art history.
Or cultural history too.
All of it.
Yeah.
One day Wayne goes up to the board. He would do this in his classes sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
And he'd just draw a horizontal line across the whole board. It was one of those rooms that had like 2 blackboards or 3 in a row. That you could slide.
Yeah.
He'd just draw a whole chalk line along the whole thing. And he'd go, I want to talk about the idea of like concurrent history and the kind of awareness that we should strive for.
Yeah.
He starts making marks on that line. And he says, let's say this is 500 AD. What was going on all around the world? Not just in Greece or Rome or whatever you taught in school. What was going on in South Asia? What was going on in Africa? What was going on in China? What was going on in,
Wow. That's pretty amazing, man.
And to have that in your mind,
he
said the goal of an education would be to walk around with this timeline. And he just started marking things on them.
Wow.
Here's the Buddha. At the same time, by the way, here's what's happening,
Yeah. Wow, that's pretty amazing.
And making connections. So those kinds of things, it's an expansive approach to teaching. It wasn't narrowing you down toward what you should do. It was opening you up toward, look what's possible.
Dude, that's so cool. That's
and
well put.
look how much there is to think about.
Yeah. That's gutsy too, because I think there are a lot of teachers that teach like they're curating a show where they're worried about how they're going to end up looking.
Sure.
As a curator.
Sure.
So they do projects that look good.
Yeah.
So they can have cool student work but they're not thinking expansively in any way.
Yeah.
It's the opposite. It's really that's really an interesting thing to think about.
Yeah. Related to that, there's another beautiful thing. Like I said, there's so many things that I'm just gonna have to try to write it down.
I mean, I think this book definitely needs to exist.
He said, I'm sure he got this idea from somewhere else.
That's okay.
But he would just pass it along, right?
Yeah.
He said, in the future, there will only be one subject at a university.
Wow.
You go to university, higher education, and maybe there will only be one subject. And that subject is how every subject relates to every other subject.
Oh, dude, whoa. That's amazing.
How physics relates to music. How music relates to geology. How geology relates to psychology. How psychology relates to mathematics. How we all relate to each other. It's a beautiful idea, isn't it?
Amazing, dude. I mean, that's like the Black Mountain College thing.
Exactly.
Oh, shit.
And that's that time period. Well, no, I know that you're into that. So
dude,
talk about what you like about it.
About Black Mountain?
Yeah.
I mean, when I learned about Black Mountain College was in art history class. I mean, we all learned about it just because of, Rauschenberg and Metzi Twombly and John Cage, whatever.
Yeah.
But I guess what I liked about it was, my problem is I have a problem with authority, as many people know. But I love teaching and I love learning.
Yeah.
But I hate institutions. And I've been in one for 30 years, ironically. So the thing I loved about it was that the first thing I loved about it was that it was anti-orthodoxy in a way. It didn't have an official, no grades.
Yes.
People, like John Cage said, all the learning really happened in the cafeteria at lunch.
Exactly.
And I guess I also loved the idea that when you look at it after the fact, it's better to burn out than to fade away. It's like that thing. Like when it came down to choosing whether to institutionalize it or brand it, it chose to destruct. I don't know if it chose, but it didn't last that long.
Well, and that's what's wrong.
Yeah.
With a lot of institutions right now.
Totally. They're on life support, inept life support.
Well, the mission becomes self-perpetuation of the institution rather than what the mission of an educational institution should be, which is education.
Well, I always thought mission statements were bullshit, but now I think that Wayne's statement about about how everything's related, that should be the fucking mission statement. Yeah. I could get down with that.
Yeah.
And I mean, I have sort of like ideas about starting I don't know how to do this, man. I don't even know what I'm saying here.
Starting your own school?
Well, kind of, but almost have it be like a virtual space. Because here's the thing about Black Mountain College that I don't want to repeat, or that I maybe think is problematic in these times, is that it's still white Western European culture.
Yes.
It's centered on that, and I don't believe in that as the model now, even though that's where I come from.
Sure.
I mean, so I would like to have a space where the spirit of Black Mountain College is really present, but it has to be tailored for today.
Of course.
And with all the things that are happening, and so... But I do think that the spirit that created it, that it was created by these two guys. I can't remember their names, but they were like rebellious educators. They were not artists or writers. They were educators, and I think it's the same spirit that created Evergreen College. But the thing about Evergreen is that I don't know that much about it, but my impression is that it's got a lot of fascist liberals who are cancel culture. That's their main thing. Yeah. That can't be good. That's not inclusive.
It's an orthodoxy.
It's another orthodoxy. And, it's like, orthodoxy, one thing I've learned from teaching where I teach now in other places is that orthodoxy comes from wanting to hold on to power much of the time.
Yes. Well, 100%.
It's not about the actual policies. It's about wanting to hold on to something. That human need to, hoard something.
And it's a human problem that...
It is human.
We start with a really good intention.
And I'm not above it. So just to be clear, I don't want power that way because I don't want to have to... I'm not sure I could handle it. I mean, it's like Lord of the Rings, man. I don't want to put... Aragorn doesn't put the ring on. You know why? Because he's fucking smart.
Yes.
He's not like a fucking hero. He's just like, dude, that's going to fuck me up.
I don't want that power. I don't want power either.
He's the only one who doesn't... He resists that. It's interesting.
But... as a teacher, you can't help but have some.
You have to have some, but you can do it mindfully, and you can be in it, but not of it. Yes. It's the same thing as institutions. Like, in the way I feel like, there was a great poet named Philip Levine who taught at UC... No. He taught at Cal State Fresno. Mm. Dude, meth capital of, you know what I mean? Like, and this guy's and he's one of the best poets America produced.
Yeah, was he from Detroit?
He's from Detroit.
I know his poems.
He's great.
Those are amazing.
Amazing. And they were like, dude, what the fuck are you doing here, man? Huh. Like, late in his career, he goes, you know what? I love teaching here. I like setting up an island of, activity in a place that, I can really make a difference. And he wasn't slumming it, though. He didn't mean it that way. Yeah. He was just saying, I can create my own world here and make a difference. And I really like it. And I kind of feel like that as a teacher sometimes. Yeah. Not that I'm above anything. I've got my own issues and I got to watch myself, etc. But I do think that would be the reason I might not start my own school, but try to implement those things in the place I teach. But I'm kind of on the fence, actually, because on the other hand, starting your own thing, you could circumvent. The problem with bureaucracy is not that it's evil or even ill-intentioned. It's just that it's a big time waster.
Yeah.
It's amazing how much time gets wasted for no good. So, whatever. I don't know what's going to happen. I love teaching, though. I mean, I think we both do.
I love it.
Yeah,
it's very hard. It's very draining.
Yeah.
But
it's really fun, though.
Then there are those times.
Yeah.
That make it all worth it and like, I
mean, I've had experiences during the last 2 years with COVID, or I guess a semester and a half, like all out of when I came back from my recovery, so many of the things I assumed were true about students and teaching are not true. And maybe we need a third podcast to talk about this, but I mean, so in a way, for me, teaching is like making a new painting. I'm like,
absolutely,
I don't really know what's going to happen here. Maybe like what I thought was blue is actually orange, man. What the fuck? And it's really true.
That's what Dave Hollowell, another one of my great teachers, said. He said exactly that.
Really?
Teaching a class is like starting a painting.
Yeah.
You give yourself a goal, you set up some parameters.
Right. Yeah. Definitely have to.
You've got some kind of beginning structure for where you want to go.
Yeah.
But at every step along the way, it has to be alive, which means it could change.
It will change.
You might have to adjust this or adjust that, or something comes up that you don't see.
And if you listen to it, it's actually fun.
Absolutely.
If you fight it, it's hell.
Right.
And even if it doesn't... The thing about teaching is that you can't really fuck it up if you try and help the students do better. I mean, if you don't... Like, students failing, a project that fails that was too hard for them can also be really helpful to them.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, so, I don't know, man, like...
No, it's one of the main things I find myself saying in my classes. I spend a lot of time walking around, especially with kids these days.
Yeah.
I feel like for whatever reason, the educational system has made a lot of people afraid to fail.
Oh, for sure.
They want to, and you see it in your institutions, I'm sure.
Oh yeah.
They want to guarantee success.
Yeah.
Right?
They definitely do.
This student will, right? Your course objectives.
Yeah, we'll learn these things.
It's not might,
No, it's not might.
They don't want the uncertainty of life.
It's not aspiration. But what's interesting is that you can say whatever you need to say, on the syllabus and class description, and you can just get real with the class. And you're like, listen, you guys, if you do well, you're going to learn a lot of stuff, but you're going to have to bring it. There's no guarantees. So they fucking know it, man. They don't get freaked out by it in the end. I don't think.
No, they're relieved.
Most
of them are relieved.
Absolutely.
I walk around the class and I say, look, number one, you have my permission to fail.
They're just happy to have somebody who actually levels with them. It's like a coach. It's like, no football team is going to win with a coach that's bullshitting his or her players.
Yeah.
They're not going to play well.
Yeah.
They don't trust. You have to trust your leader.
Yeah.
To not bullshit you.
Yeah.
I mean, it's amazing how much work they are willing to do if they can trust you.
Yeah.
So
that's right.
But so many teachers act as if their students are like prisoners in solitary.
Yeah.
It's amazing to me how they treat them.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that they abuse them, but they treat them unbelievably condescendingly as stats, not as people. And they're adults. They may not be mature adults yet, but dude, those guys know what's up, man. They know when a teacher is bullshitting them. They fucking know it.
That's what's great about students.
I agree, man.
That's what's great.
I know.
They're and like youth in general, the BS meter is running well.
Absolutely, yeah, definitely.
So I think you said a key word there, though, like treating them like human beings. which sounds so stupid.
It ought not to be so.
Like, should that be revolutionary? But
yeah. Jesus.
That's exactly what the Davis professors that I love.
That's what it sounds like.
The really good teachers that were there. And there were bad teachers.
Well.
But the really good ones, and there were several.
Yeah.
They were... It's like they were students with you.
Yeah.
And it takes a really secure person to teach like that.
But it makes me think of all analogies. I remember watching Band of Brothers a lot when I was depressed, and I still think it's a great series.
I've never watched it.
It's fucking great, and it's based on real people. I can't remember his name now, a captain something. He was always first in line, man, going over the top or whatever. He did not send his guys in as fodder.
Yeah, right.
He survived.
Yeah.
But people, the real guys who were interviewed at the beginning of each thing were like, I can't believe this guy survived. Yeah. I don't know how he did it. Yeah. And he's like calm under fire. I mean, it's interesting because your teachers at Davis remind me of, though they may be very rare, they're not Martians. They're people in the real world.
They're just people.
They're just people, and like they just did the right thing. So we can choose to do the right thing.
What's weird is that it would be weird.
That's right.
But yeah, Wayne was, when I studied with him, he was in his mid to late 70s.
Right.
He would come in like he was a first year teacher. Yeah. He would set up his easel. Yeah. And put out his paints. Wow. And we'd sit on the floor. Wow. And he'd do a demonstration for us.
So amazing.
And he'd make self-deprecating jokes about it while he's doing
it.
Yeah.
Oh my God. If only you could have filmed that. I guess that wouldn't be cool, but man, it would be an amazing document.
It's like, for a while, he painted for like half an hour, and then he sort of stood back and he looked at it like this for a long time. And one of the students in the class goes, "Are you done?" And he looks over with like kind of a smile, and he goes, "I believe the word is finished." Yeah. So that
that's so good, man.
And then he starts talking about art history. Yeah. And it's a jaw-dropping knowledge and intimacy that he has with the whole thing.
Yeah, man.
So simultaneously winning your respect. Yeah. And then also walking the walk and just being like, well, I'm just like you. I'm just trying to I don't know.
Yeah. That's amazing.
And so teachers like that, that's why I teach. It is like,
too, man.
There's no way to thank them.
No.
You just pass along what they do.
Pay it forward, man. All right, we're going to get cut off by IG in a minute anyway. I think we have to do another one, man.
Whenever you want.
Let's do it, man. I mean, you're like the golden guest. The gift that keeps on giving. I want to thank Vonn Sumner so much, and off camera, Gabriella. Thank you guys for tuning in. We will start doing these with more regularity, and any feedback you guys have, I'm happy to hear it. Peace.